Everything's
All
fine.
right.
So who was president when your first kid was born?
Who was the president? Oh, Lord.
Or if you can just give me the year Uncle Mark was born, I can just look it up later.
All right. Well, Uncle Mark was born in 1957.
Okay.
I can't remember who the president was at that time.
Let me look it up really quickly. Let's see. Eisenhower?
Yeah.
Did you vote for him?
For Eisenhower?
Yeah. Do you remember who you voted for?
Oh, I do. Oh, yes, I did. I voted for him. He was a Republican.
Okay.
I voted for, he was a general. General Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Dwight Eisenhower was his name.
Yep.
I voted for him.
Let's see. Do you remember, like, where you were and how you felt when you first found out about the JFK assassination?
Yes, I do, very well. Grammy and I and the 3 children were on our way from Springfield to Maine. And we were going to be in Maine for 1 week, and I was going on a hunting trip with Grampy and some other men up here to Forest City. And that was in November of 1963.
Okay.
And we came over the Mass Pike up to Linfield and Danvers onto Route 1, and there was a Howard Johnson's outside of Danvers right on Route 1. And it was about 7 o'clock at night, and we stopped there. It was dark. We stopped at Howard Johnson's and went in, and somebody seated us, and it was very quiet, and it was very eerie. And Grammy and I looked at each other and wondered what's going on. There was no noise. There was no bustle. There were quite a few people there. And all of a sudden, our waitress came over, and it appeared that she had been crying. Her eyes were kind of wet and so forth, and she had her pad out to take our order. And I said to her, well, what's going on? And she said, have you folks been traveling? And we said, yes, for 2 or 3 hours we've been traveling. And she said, did you have your radio on? And we said, no, we didn't have the radio on. And she said, well, President Kennedy's been shot, and he's dead.
Oh, my gosh.
Man, that was a terrible shock, and you could hear a pin drop in that restaurant.
Did you cry?
Well, we didn't cry, but we were very, very sad and upset.
Yeah.
Because he was a good man. He was very popular. He was young, handsome president. And it was just a disaster to the country and the world that he had been shot by some jerk with a high-powered rifle.
Yeah.
But that's how we found out about it.
Did you watch his funeral on TV?
Oh, yes. When we got to Maine, to Grammy's house, and to Grampy's house, and to Mom's, and to Grammy's parents' house, of course, the TV's on, and it was late at night, so by the time we got to Gardner and to Bath, where my parents lived, and so we watched a little TV. Of course, the next morning, the huge headlines in the papers and stuff, and so Grammy and the 3 children stayed in Gardner for 3 or 4 days, and then they went from Gardner to Bath to my parents' home, and they stayed with my parents for 3 or 4 days, while Grampy and I and 2 other men were up here at Forest City on a deer hunting trip. That was a very sad occasion, the history of our lives and the history of the world.
Okay. Where were you during the Cuban Missile Crisis? Like, where did you live then?
I was in Springfield, in the Cuban Missile Crisis. I was very much on duty. Of course, the telephone company is very much a part of that whole scene. And as a matter of fact, I was in Portland, Maine at the time on telephone business when that happened, and they scooted back to Springfield as fast as we could at the Cuban Missile Crisis, because nobody knew what was going to happen.
What was the second Red Scare, or like what's also called McCarthyism, like?
What was the second what?
It's called, in school we learned it as the second Red Scare, But my mom said it's also called McCarthyism.
Yes.
What was that
a
like?
terrible thing. There was a senator named Joseph McCarthy, and he was a very rabid man, and he told an awful lot of lies, and he scared an awful lot of people with his absolute lies that weren't true. And people knew that it weren't true, but he made it sound as if it were true, that the country was infested with communists from Russia, and that they were plotting to secretly overthrow the government and take over the country. And he was in the Congress, and everybody was scared to death of him, because if you crossed him and called him a liar or took issue with his thoughts and stuff, he would say you were a communist, and he'd make up a lot of lies. You'd been to Russia, and you were a communist, and so an awful lot of influential people were scared to death of it.
So did you not believe what he was saying about communists?
Oh no, reasonable people didn't care lies. Reasonable people didn't believe what he was saying. Just like now, the politicians are saying things that aren't true, and Romney, who's running now for the vice presidential ticket, is saying all kinds of stuff that isn't true, and reasonable people will see through it all and sort it out. But that was a really bad time in our history, and Washington, D.C. was all caught up in that. Finally, somebody took this guy to the mat, if you will, and said he had no conscience, and so forth and so on, and people began to rebuff him, and he faded away into nothing as a beaten, downtrodden, derelict of a man.
How did you feel about what happened to the Rosenbergs?
Well, I didn't ever think that. I just wondered if it was ever truly proven that they were communist spies. I mean, they were killed because of that. And I always wondered in my own mind how the devil they ever knew that they were, and God help us, they might have been innocent, but were killed anyway, you know.
Yeah. Did you follow everything with Elder Hiss?
No, I didn't think much of that. I didn't get much involved with that. I remember that time when that was a big deal in the world, in the country, the Elder Hiss thing, but I was not too interested in that stuff at that time. I was very young, and I had many important things going on that I was more interested in than that, you know.
Was that before or after the kids were born?
Oh, that was before.
Okay. Did you follow the when Charles Lindbergh's son was kidnapped?
Well, that was a long, long time ago. I was very young, Caroline.
Oh, okay.
I was very young boy in those days. I don't remember what year that was. That was a terrible thing, but I probably was not even, maybe I wasn't big enough to read the newspaper even, you know?
Oh, okay. So that was a long time ago. Okay. Were you worried for your kids' safety during the McCarthyism era, or did you just not really think anything was going on and you were okay?
Well, I just didn't think there was that much going on, you know?
Let's see. Did you have to do, like, bomb drills at work and everything? Or, like, nuclear missiles drills and all that stuff?
Have to do drills?
Yeah.
Well, no, but, no, I was long gone from school in those days, but children did in those days, in the missile crisis and all. They were trained when the children in elementary school, if there's going to be a missile crisis or something, to, I guess, as I remember, crawl under the desk for protection and that sort of thing, you know. I was never involved with that, and I don't think our kids were ever involved with that either, to tell you the truth.
What was your reaction to the Watergate scandal?
Well, I followed that very closely all those years, and that was a terrible thing of lies and deceit and so forth to try to get a political advantage, and breaking into the Watergate Democratic National Committee files to get some advantage on who was in politics and what they were doing and so on. And it was a bad thing. And then the President of the United States. That was a terrible thing, was lying, and you know all about, or you read about, I'm sure, about the tapes that President Nixon had, and
Yeah.
finally it became apparent that he had some tapes, and that was his end. The tapes are what brought him down. He defied to the end that he didn't know anything about it, but he was lying, and actually he was terribly disgraced and was forced to remove from office.
So when he was elected, like before that happened, did you like him? Did you vote for him?
No, I didn't. I was a Democrat, and I voted for a Democratic ticket all the time. He was Republican.
So,
Excuse me.
Yeah, are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you didn't vote for Nixon, do you remember who you voted for instead?
No, I voted for Truman, and I voted for President Kennedy.
Okay.
John Kennedy ran against Nixon.
Oh, right. Okay. So that was the end of the political questions. So that's already the first 3 sets. So we're doing really well so far. Do you want to take a little break and then I can call you back? Or
Well, how much more do you have, Caroline?
I just have to ask you technology and pop culture, and then we're done.
Technology
And popular culture.
and popular culture. What's the technology questions? How many are they, Caroline?
There are 12 technology and 12 popular culture.
Well, all right, go ahead on technology, and I'll try to answer them. I'm getting hoarser now than ever. The